Hello all, my name is Tyler,
And I'm John.
and together we are DeLong Rigging Solutions, or DRS for short.
All right, now let's talk some about operating a counterweight system. The procedures are going to vary a little bit depending on whether you're in an educational, like a high school theater, versus in a professional theater where there's a full-time staff. Just because, particularly because in a high school there can be a wide variety of people who come and go, whereas in a professional facility where you have someone who's dedicated to that job, there's less likelihood of something going on that they're not aware of. On the other hand, you have to always be cautious about approaching the system and operating the system. First thing that you need to do as you get ready to operate a line set is to see whether one line or the other seems to be particularly tight. And you can get used to, in the system, any given system, you kind of get used to what it feels like. If it's out of weight, one line or the other will be tight. If it's arbor heavy, the front line will be tight. If it's pipe heavy, the back line will be tight. I usually, as a first step, will kick the idler block so that there's a little slack in the operating line. That helps you to evaluate whether one line is tight or not, because now you've got a little bit of slack in it. If it's out of weight, you won't feel like you have slack in both lines. One or the other will feel tight. The next step in the operation would be to pull the ring off and open the lock. Usually you kind of open the lock a little bit slowly, a little bit cautiously, just to confirm that your system is in balance and it feels okay. As you're ready to move the pipe, then you want to make sure that your floor is clear, that you don't have anybody working under it that needs to be specifically warned, and a look into the fly system to see that you're not bringing a pipe down on top of another piece of scenery or something. So a view of the stage is important. If you don't have a view, if there's a lot going on, then typically you would have a spotter, or you would have another fly rail person who is going to help you spot it as it moves. When you're ready to move the batten, if you pull the line closest to you, that's going to bring the batten in. If you pull the line away from you, that's going to take the batten out or up. In this case, it's just this batten, this line set, is just a little bit arbor heavy, so you can see it's running by itself going out. That's okay, as long as it's within a pretty reasonable amount of weight to be able to pull comfortably. You will notice, or may notice, that as the batten comes in, it gets more pipe heavy as it comes in, and when it goes out, it gets a little bit arbor heavy. Like, see there, it's much closer to balanced. As it goes out, as the batten goes out, then it'll tend to become more arbor heavy. And that's a normal thing. There's some reasons for that beyond the scope of what we're talking about right now, but that is something that happens. Another practice, which I neglected as I was talking about other things, is that we call it out when we move a pipe. Usually best to just call out the line set number. So in this case, line set 23 moving, or line set 23 coming in. That does a number of things. That warns the people on the deck that there's a batten coming in, but it also speaks to your weight loaders if you have weight loaders up. That gives them an opportunity to know that it's moving, and if there's a problem, if they've left the spring clip on the arbor, or they're still working on it, or they're working on something right next to it, that gives them an opportunity to call down to you, stop. That, you know, there's some reason that you need to not move line set 23. So communication is important so that the weight loaders, the fly person at the rail, and the people out on the deck all know when there's a line set moving. Another thing to think about and to be aware of is that as a general rule, you want to make sure that there are other people around when you're operating the fly system. If there's an out of weight situation or something unexpected, you should have some help available so that you don't get into a position where you're in danger just because you don't have enough help. Another subject to touch on here would be a runaway line set. Obviously, we know nobody wants to see that, and in a well-managed fly system, rarely does that happen. But it does happen. And while there are a variety of things that could happen, there are some mechanical failures that could cause it. It's most often an operational error, either a failure to communicate or a lapse in procedure. So if I had to choose a single thing that would prevent the most runaway accidents, I would say probably focus on the job at hand. To concentrate on what you're doing, don't be distracted, don't try to do too many things at one time. So stay with your procedures and stay focused on what you're doing. In the case, if something happens that there's a runaway, if you step away from the rail and something happens while you're away, if a piece of scenery is being assembled and bounces a line set and your secure over here doesn't stand up to being bounced, there are some things that can happen. And if that happens and there is a true runaway, don't grab the line. If you grab the line when it's zinging by you, the only thing you're going to do is create a biohazard with all your flesh that you leave on the rope. So if you see that situation, you have two jobs. Yell so everybody else knows there's a problem, and get yourself out of the way. Those are really the only two things you can do at that point. So that being said, focus on not letting it happen. But if it does, we can replace crash rail. We can replace strained, overloaded line set, load lines and all that. All that stuff can be replaced. You need to get yourself and your crew out of danger's way.
Please remember that DeLong Rigging Solutions one-shot training videos are meant as general overviews. Every system is different. Every venue has different procedures. All statements made make certain assumptions about systems and venue similarities. Nothing can replace on-site training with a qualified individual. If ever you have a question or concern about rigging, do not hesitate to reach out to us or another qualified vendor in your area.